Hello there everyone and welcome, it is Niran here, and today it is time for me to bring you the long-awaited episode number 15 of our F1 2016 career mode here with Renault, and I do apologise for just how long it's been. I mean, there's no real amount of apologising, even that's the word, that I can do really to actually say how sorry I am, because it's been a very long time since the last episode on this series, and generally videos on this channel have been a bit sparse recently, and I do apologise for that, but to be quite honest with you, I've just been focusing on FIFA. And a lot of my attention has been on making FIFA videos on such a regular basis that it's become really difficult to make F1 videos on a very regular basis, because I'm also at uni as well. It's just been really challenging. Obviously this series isn't going to end before we get to the end of the season, it's just going to be far less regular than maybe it was when the game first came out. The amount of time that it's been between this episode and the last one is unacceptable, so I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. Nevertheless, we are here in Singapore for round number 15, and obviously jumping straight into practice, we've got to do some track acclimatization. And because it's been so long since the last episode of this series, it's been quite a long time since I actually drove on this game at all, so I'm not holding too much hope for this race weekend. In terms of having much pace, or in terms of doing very well in practice or track acclimatization. We seem to be doing pretty well here. We've only missed one corner on the track. Obviously there's a lot of corners on this track, so there's a lot of opportunities to get red gates or whatever on the track acclimatization. Seem to be doing pretty well here, especially in the last sector. We're basically bossing it actually in the last sector. Coming through the final corner now, going a little bit wide there, trying to lunge for that gate, and then losing the back end, hitting the wall on the inside and breaking part of our front wing. We interestingly don't actually get the perfect score, which is quite surprising because we've got a lot of purple corners. We did break our front wing, so we decided to leave it there. We get 30 resource points from that, and now we're going to go ahead and do some qualifying pace. And losing the back end again through that final corner, which is not too ideal, but coming round the final corner now, the end of the lap, they're cutting that final corner a little bit, but we are like 7 tenths up. We come across the line to get a green score, and yet again surprising. I expected really to get a purple one on both of those based on what we did, but in the end we didn't. We do still get 60 resource points, plus all the other ones that we get for completing that practice session, as you can see in the background. 20 resource points as well from team objectives, which gives us basically 199, and that goes towards 577 resource points, which really isn't enough to do the upgrade that we want to do next. For the next Grand Prix, which is a bit of a shame, but nevertheless we have still got some in the bank. You can see our qualifying goals there: qualify 12th or higher, beat our rival who is Fernando Alonso at the moment, and of course beat our teammate Kevin Magnussen. We're just behind Force India in terms of car performance, so we do need to do some upgrades soon, try and get it back ahead of those guys and then progress further. But for now, we'll have a look at what happened in qualifying for Singapore by checking out the qualifying report. Mercedes have historically struggled at the Marina Bay circuit recently, and Q1 was showing the same trend this year as Sebastian Vettel was fastest in the Ferrari. Both of the Haas machines were eliminated in the session, along with Marcus Ericsson, who failed to set a lap time. Nico Rosberg went fastest in Q2 ahead of Kimi Raikkonen as Mercedes attempted to hit back. Yusufu will be disappointed in 13th, having been blocked by Carlos Sainz on his lap, whilst his teammate Kevin Magnussen got into Q3 at the expense of Fernando Alonso. The shootout would witness a complete change-up in form, however, as Daniel Ricciardo took pole for Red Bull Racing ahead of Nico Rosberg. Championship leader Sebastian Vettel will start 4th, but was only 15 hundredths of a second away from pole position. So all of this leaves us with Daniel Ricciardo on pole for the Singapore Grand Prix of 2016, with Nico Rosberg on the front row alongside him. Lewis Hamilton would take P3 as he charges for the title in front of championship leader Sebastian Vettel. Max Verstappen and Kimi Raikkonen will share row 3, with the two Williams cars of Felipe Massa and Valtteri Bottas on row 4. Then it's Kevin Magnussen and Carlos Sainz in P9 and P10, with Fernando Alonso in the McLaren and Daniel Kvyat and Toro Rosso to round out the top 12. So it really is a story of what could have been for qualifying in Singapore. It was a pretty decent one in terms of pace, but unfortunately getting massively held up by Carlos Sainz in the middle sector of the lap going through what was the Singapore Sling, which, to be honest with you, lost us a lot of time. The gap between 13th and 7th place in that Q2 session was 2 tenths of a second, and I think we lost at least double that by following Carlos Sainz through that section. So it is quite disappointing that we're only starting 13th on the grid for the Singapore Grand Prix, especially in the knowledge that we've got our teammates up in the top 10. I am happy for him, but obviously it does mean that we should be higher up as well, judging by comparison with his car, obviously, as well. That's really where our bar should be. That's where we should be aiming for, is where our teammate is, and Kevin Magnussen will be starting 9th on the grid. The first time he's out-qualified us for quite some time, I imagine. I'm sure Alex Cameron will be able to tell me in the comments section. Nevertheless, in the meantime, it is time to get into the Grand Prix. You can see Daniel Ricciardo there as the man on pole. Very good qualifying session from him, beating both the Mercedes and, of course, both the Ferraris, who, judging by vehicle comparison on this save, are actually better than Mercedes, the Silver Arrows, at this point in the season. You can see here the strategy in the background. We've got the super softs and then the softs. For some reason, the super soft stint seems to be longer than the yellow wall soft stint on that strategy, but obviously that won't be the case in the actual race. We were given the choice of a 2-stop and a 1-stop. Both seem to be basically the same in terms of end time, so we'll basically be doing this on the fly. Because it doesn't seem to be much of a difference in terms of strategy, in terms of how quick each one is by the end of the race, we're basically just going to decide at the end, or when we need to, as we're driving, what strategy we're going to go for. We're thinking of the 1-stop for now, but it may be that we decide to go for the super softs that we're running now, and then the ultra softs until the end, or 2 sets of ultra softs till the end. That's basically what starting on the super softs has allowed us to do. It's allowed us to now choose in the middle of the race or just before the middle of the race what we want to do, whether we want to dedicate to a 1-stop or whether we want to dedicate to a 2-stop, because that option is now currently open to us. Nevertheless, we're lining up on the grid in P13 with the 2 Force Indias just behind us of Hülkenberg and Perez. The lights are now starting to illuminate. The 5 lights are now on and they are now off for the Singapore Grand Prix, and we are underway. Great start from Kvyat to our left-hand side. Not a great start from us. Fernando Alonso's already gone past Carlos Sainz up into P10. Sainz now being swamped by us around the outside and Kvyat on the soft tyres on the inside. We've got another car coming up the inside though now through turn 1, that's Nico Hülkenberg, as we get hung out to dry. We've not exactly positioned ourselves very well, and we've actually lost the position going through the first few corners as Hülkenberg goes up into P13, looking to move up the inside through this right-hander and down onto the first DRS straight. Obviously we don't have DRS on the first lap of the race. We are unable to make a move. In the slipstream though of Nico Hülkenberg, who himself is in the slipstream of Toro Rosso in front of us. We're going to the outside and Hülkenberg chops us off there slightly. That could have been a massive incident, but in the end we just duck out of the move and do hold on to P14 and do hold on to the car. We can see the other yellow car of Kevin Magnussen just up the road. He's managed to maintain P9. Behind us is Sergio Perez and Jenson Button as well in that McLaren. He's exactly where he started. Down towards the Singapore Sling, there's a massive amount of cars in a very short space of time, or a very short patch of tarmac. A Williams and a Ferrari going alongside each other here through the new bridge section. Bottas getting hung out to dry by the Ferrari well up the road, and it's causing a bit of a domino effect, and we're going to try and lunge up the inside of Hülkenberg down to this hairpin and onto the second and long straight, so I think we're just about going to get that done. It's quite an opportunistic move on Nico Hülkenberg, who of course was being held up quite drastically, but we do get the job done, and through we go back up into P13 where we started onto lap 2, and the next target is Daniel Kvyat on the much slower soft tyres. We're obviously on the super softs, so we've got an advantage on him, not on Carlos Sainz because he's on the ultra softs. Lots of strategies going on. In the meantime though, we are making a move up the inside of Daniel Kvyat there, down into that left-hander at the end of the first back straight, and through we go up into P12, a move we definitely had to make because Kvyat was on the slower tyres, so I'm glad we've managed to get that done pretty quickly. Towards the end of lap 3 and now the start of lap 4, we've got some DRS going down the home straight because obviously that is now enabled. Kevin Magnussen has dropped behind Fernando Alonso and is now coming under massive threat from Carlos Sainz, and the Spaniard is going up the inside on those ultra soft tyres. Magnussen's also on ultra soft as well, and despite that we get much better traction coming out the first few corners and gain a position on our teammate, who seems to have no real race pace in comparison to his 1-lap pace that he was showing on a Saturday, because he's dropping down through the field despite being on the best possible tyres. In the DRS and slipstream now of Carlos Sainz, looking up the inside of the ultra-soft shod Toro Rosso, and it's a great move from a long way back on Carlos Sainz, and up into P10 we go, making 2 positions in a matter of corners really, 2 positions in 1 lap. Up the road, Felipe Massa has been dispatched by Fernando Alonso, who's a man on a mission at the moment in the McLaren. He's making some very good progress. On to lap 5, Felipe Massa is in touching distance really. He's really dropping off the back of Fernando Alonso, who's galloping up the road. We're not too far away from Massa, which is a very good achievement because we're on slower tyres at the moment and we're still catching him in that Williams, but I feel as if the tyres are starting to go off a little bit. You can see a few mistakes creeping in there, going onto the curb and sliding slightly. Despite the fact these tyres are still very, very new and very, very young, a few of the ultra-soft shod tyred drivers are coming in, Massa and Sainz included, and we gain a few positions there up into P6. On to lap 7, and we are actually genuinely starting to struggle for tyre life already. It's a 31-lap race, and we can't afford really to be pitting yet. We can't. I mean, we've got to stretch these tyres until at least lap 12, and at the moment we're not doing so whatsoever. These tyres feel as if they're going off already. Our teammates in the pit lane, because obviously he started on the ultra softs, down into turn 1. We're coming under massive threat here from Sergio Perez, just holding on though in front of both the Force Indias of Perez and Hulkenberg behind. We're up into P3 because obviously quite a few of the drivers ahead of us started on ultra softs and have come into the pit lane. Fernando Alonso somehow is still going, and for some reason we're really struggling at the moment to hit any apexes, just massive amounts of understeer. I don't know what's really going on, because the tyre wear is nowhere near as bad as it should be to be having this sort of tyre wear issue, and Sergio Perez is going to simply drive right around the outside of us and get that position back off us. And this is a nightmare. For some reason these tyres have gone off so quickly and without actually having too much tyre wear on the tyre gauge. It's so confusing. You can see more understeer again. The car, it's like trying to steer a ferry in between two walls at the moment, let alone a Renault F1 car. You can see Hulkenberg is bearing down on us, going to the outside, trying the same move that his teammate did the lap before. We try and cover it off, we brake too late, we've outbroken ourselves, locked up, gone wide, and we've now lost 3 positions for the price of 1. Nico Hulkenberg goes through in the Force India, followed closely by Jenson Button and Daniel Kvyat. Even Kvyat on the soft tyres in the Toro Rosso has even managed to get through as well. We've dropped off the back of them monumentally by lap 12, which is the lap where we're meant to come into the pit lane. Even Romain Grosjean and Felipe Nasr were starting to catch us behind, and Ericsson as well in the Sauber, and we're going to be coming in. We've been massively undercutted as well by the people who started on the ultra softs, although they are guaranteed to at least do a 2-stop, although at this point it doesn't feel as if we can do a 2-stop. It doesn't feel as if we can do a 1-stop, sorry. So coming in for the ultra softs, and we're going to have to do 2 phases of this until the end of the race. And the problem with this is, you know, a lot of you guys might be thinking, well, you've doomed yourself now, you've got an extra pit stop to do, but we've got to try something different, because that's the end of that stint has completely killed off our chances of being able to fight with Hulkenberg, Perez, Kvyat, who are obviously going to be doing the same strategy. They're obviously going to be trying the 1-stop because their tyres weren't going off and they started on the super softs or the softs. So Perez and Hulkenberg and Button, who started on the super softs, will obviously then stick on a set of softs till the end of the race. They'll do a 1-stop. Kvyat will do the opposite of that strategy. He'll go on to super softs for the end of the race. Well, we dropped 6 seconds to them, so I mean, we're not going to gain those 6 seconds back, or 7 seconds or whatever, by doing the same strategy as them. We've got to try something different, and that different strategy is by going onto the ultra softs and just seeing what happens. We're doomed from the start if we go on the same strategy as them. At least if we try something different, it could either go well or it could go badly. We're already starting to carve our way through the order on these fast tyres now, these obviously perfect tyres in comparison to the other ones. They're new and they're the faster compound. We've gone past Esteban Gutierrez in the Sauber. We're now charging at the inside of Felipe Nasr in the Sauber. Next up is Rio Haryanto, and you can see Nico Hulkenberg as well. He's on those soft tyres, so he's going to the end. He's just up the road. We've got to try and pass him and then gain a ridiculous amount of time on him. It's going to be a massive ask, to be quite honest with you. The end of that first stint really killed us off. We are at least making some overtakes, though, by passing Rio Haryanto there, the Indonesian driver, in the manner, up into P14 out on the track. Now on to lap 18, a few more people have pitted, and we're now moving up into P9, now P8, because Kvyat has come out of the pit lane. Lots of different strategies going on. The front sort of 8 definitely are on 2-stoppers. I know Magnussen's on a 2-stopper as well, but the likes of Hulkenberg, Perez, Kvyat, and a few of the others will be on 1-stoppers. Button as well. I think Alonso's on a 2-stopper as well, like we are. So it's going to be a bit of a nightmare, really, trying to gain all this time back on Hulkenberg and Perez. Nevertheless, we are in a slipstream of Hulkenberg. He had DRS on Magnussen ahead, but we lock up and just about get the move done. That was a really nice move, coming from quite a long way back. It wasn't really a dive bomb because we made our intention quite clear very early on, but it was still very, very close and a really nice move in the end. On to lap 19, still making progress through the field, and Kevin Magnussen, our teammate, is our next target. Through this right-hander and down onto the back straight, the first DRS zone after the start-finish line, and we're into the slipstream. We've got the DRS on our teammate. This should be a comfortable move. Magnussen shouldn't fight it too much because he knows we're on a slightly different strategy to him. He's on the super softs at the moment as well. I think he's got to do another ultra soft stint though before the end of the race, and we go through past the Danish driver, past our teammate, and up into P5 here on lap 19, but obviously we know that is not going to last because we've got to pit again before the end of the race. On to lap 21 of this race, and I think it's fair to say these ultra softs are starting to go off a little bit. We're not really catching Sergio Perez at the rate we really should be, and we're not really extending away from that massive gaggle of cars behind. And the problem really here is, if the field was a lot more stretched out, I think we'd have a great chance of points. but a lot of the drivers that we're trying to chase down are in a massive clump of cars, so it's going to be quite difficult really catching all of them. I don't think we've got enough time in hand to be able to make a pit stop, and you can see on the minimap the amount of cars that are going to pass us here, the likes of Hulkenberg, that we haven't really stretched out enough of a gap over. Button as well, a few other cars, we're already out of the top 10 now, we haven't even got to our pit box. Nevertheless, on to lap 23, we're coming in, putting another set of the purple-walled ultra-soft tyres on that we last saw in Canada, I do believe. We've got a few other drivers coming in behind, a few other cars that have sort of dedicated to the two-stop. They've got some yellow flags out, though, in Sector 2, and that's because Daniel Kvyat is out of the race, someone we've actually raced with for quite a long period of this race in a Toro Rosso. He is actually out, which is a massive shame for the Russian, but it'll gift us an extra position. This is what happened to the Russian driver in the Toro Rosso, coming through that right-hander, and that Ferrari power unit, there we go, I was going to say Renault for some reason, that Ferrari power unit completely gives up on him, and he is out of the race with a massive plume of smoke coming out the back end of that Toro Rosso, which is a big shame actually, because he put himself in a very good position to actually gain quite a few points this weekend, so big shame for Kvyat. He's out of the race, but it's gifted us an extra position. Meanwhile, we've gone purple through the first sector of lap 24, but the amount of distance between us and cars ahead is going to make it very difficult to catch us as we move on to lap 25, and you can see in the top left that Sergio Perez, the man on the one stop, is actually leading the race at the moment with 6 laps to go, which is astonishing for Force India if he can hold on to it, but that's going to be a monumental task because Lewis Hamilton, as you can see, is already catching him and already moving up the inside into turn 1, and this is where the strategies now fuse together. It's where they both meet. The one-stoppers and the two-stoppers are starting to merge at some point in this race, and it's begging the question, really, what were my strategists on about at the start of the race? Because they were saying that the one-stop and the two-stop was basically as quick as each other. Well, this race is proving that they're not. Sergio Perez being in the lead, or being in second now, is directly proving that they're not as quick as each other. The one-stop is clearly way more beneficial, and I would have done that had I known that it was actually that much quicker. In the meantime, we're having a monumental battle with our teammate Magnussen, just about holding it around the outside after a little bit of contact with our Danish teammate, just holding on. We're obviously both on the same strategy, and we've both been screwed over by it. Magnussen started 9th, he was in a good position to get some points, so was I, and we've gone for the two-stopper, and we're both outside of the points. Meanwhile, back towards the front of the field, and Sergio Perez is about to be dispatched again by another Mercedes, and again through turn 1. It's basically a carbon copy move from Nico Rosberg, the same as what his teammate pulled off on the Mexican driver. On to lap 29, we're still dealing with the moderate threat from behind, which is our teammate Kevin Magnussen. Thankfully, the Renault management have decided to allow us to race each other. Obviously, we're not fighting for points, so it doesn't really matter too much whether there's any sort of incident at all. We've not really got much to lose at this point. Going quite wide there, though, through that right-hander and onto the DRS straight is going to allow Kevin Magnussen quite a good chance to get an overtake done here on lap 29 of this 31-lap race. We show him to the outside again, holding onto the inside, onto the marbles, though. Magnussen on the racing line cuts across us a little bit. We lose the back end slightly, but just about hold on to the position. Great battling here between myself and Magnussen. It's just a shame that it's not going to be for points whatsoever, and it doesn't really have any sort of meaning, but at least it's providing some entertainment at the end of a pretty dismal race, I suppose, in terms of finishing position. Nevertheless, this man looks as if he's going to win. He's on the final lap of the race, is Lewis Hamilton. Just a few more corners to go, but his engine has given up on him on the final lap of the race, and Lewis Hamilton is struck by yet more mechanical demons on lap 31 of this 31-lap race. Rosberg drives through, surely can't believe his luck, as Sergio Perez follows him through as well, and on the final lap of the race, Lewis Hamilton, the race leader, is out, and surely that is the end of his title hopes. Sebastian Vettel could extend a 3-digit lead over Lewis Hamilton by the end of the race, and Kevin Magnussen's trying to move as well on as he's going to the inside. This time we show him to the inside. We'll have to try and get the cut back on him. We've got bigger things to focus on than the title at the moment as we go up the inside, and which becomes the outside, I suppose, going into this right-hand corner, and we do just about hold on in front of Kevin Magnussen. And can we hold on now for the rest of this final lap? It's been a great battle, to be fair, between ourselves and Magnussen. It's really sparked up a nice ending to the race, really, because it's been pretty poor for both of us in terms of strategy, but at least we're fighting each other, at least we're having some good racing at the end of this one. And down towards this little left-hand hairpin, we are just about holding on in front of Magnussen down this straight. I don't think it's long enough for Magnussen to make any sort of move up the inside. Nico Rosberg, though, is gifted the win on the final lap of the race. He must be laughing to himself. Lewis Hamilton can only imagine what's going on inside that helmet of his. Absolute travesty for the Brit in the Mercedes on the final lap of the race. about what, maybe a few kilometers from home, and his engine gives up, his engine blows up on him, and he is out of the race. It is first for Rosberg, I can only imagine it's second as well for Sergio Perez. Another story again of what could have been. We were racing Perez at one point, but we dedicated to the two-stopper. It was a massive mistake. The strategists will have quite a lot to answer for between myself and Kevin Magnussen. We come across the line for P13 here in Singapore, and it is no points for the first time in quite some time, to be honest with you, actually, in this series. It's been a while since we had a poor result like that, but we do finish outside of the points, and we'll have to make sure that we better our result in round number 16 of the season. Nevertheless, Nico Rosberg is the winner. You can see Sergio Perez as well on the podium. Well done to him. He gets P2, and Sebastian Vettel is third, which means he extends his lead in the championship. Raikkonen fourth there in the second of the Ferraris, followed by Bottas, Hülkenberg in P6, Button from 16th on the grid to 7th. Disastrous race for Daniel Ricciardo. He actually got a stop-go penalty for cutting a corner and gaining advantage right at the start of the race, so he ended up in 8th. Then it was Sainz and Alonso, the two Spaniards, to round out the top 10, with Felipe Massa and Max Verstappen interestingly missing out on points as well. Some disappointing race for both of those guys as well as ourselves. In terms of the Drivers' Championship, Sebastian Vettel is now 102 points clear of Lewis Hamilton after the Brit had that win snatched away from him on the final lap of the race. It's further 9 points back to Rosberg, then Verstappen and Ricciardo. Kimi Raikkonen has jumped us in the championship, so we dropped to 7th. Perez with that second place is now up to 8th, past both of the Toro Rosso drivers. Then it's Alonso, Massa and Bottas still having very disappointing seasons. They're in 12th and 13th, and then Button and Hülkenberg to round out the top 15. Again, Kevin Magnussen does not score points. In the Constructors' Championship, it is still Ferrari out clear by 36 points from Mercedes, and then Red Bull with Toro Rosso still in a comfortable 4th. A lot of change though in the middle pack of the mid-pack of the Constructors' Championship though. Force India gaining 3 positions and up into 5th. McLaren stay 6th, we drop down to 7th, and Williams drop down to 8th. But it's all very, very tight between 5th and 8th, and there'll be an absolutely wonderful battle between now and the end of the season for those positions in the Constructors' Championship between ourselves, Force India, Williams and McLaren. Nevertheless, that is basically about it for this race. It's a pretty disappointing result, one that I guess I expected given my lack of practice in recent times on this game, but still disappointing nonetheless. We'll hope to bounce back stronger in the next race, which I hope will be a lot more regular. I'm hoping that'll be sooner than has been the gap between the last 2 episodes. Once again, I do apologise for that. I've just been struggling for time recently to upload on this channel. If you have enjoyed this video though, feel free to hit the likes button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and comment about enjoying the video if you enjoyed it that much. It's been a pleasure though ranting at you guys today. Have a great day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.
Wanna say yes, yes. Hope I see you next time. Said I want to be